it's sort of, as I said, you gradually understand things. You can't just understand China or Western history by reading lots of books and thinking very hard for 6 months, and then you understand it. Time has got to pass. It drips, and then a little bit more of the puzzle comes into focus, and so on and so on. So for certainly over the last 2 or 3 years, writing about the book on China, and realizing that China is very difficult to understand because it's so complex, which is what most people would think, because it's so big and diverse and long history, but because it's so simple, much simpler system than ours. And simplicity is very difficult to understand, particularly from the West. So it's the simplicity of China which is more and more striking me. And one breakthrough was in relation to the social structure, which counterintuitively, and this is where you have to have a big leap of the imagination, you would imagine that such a big and complex sort of place would have a very complex social organization. But what I discovered accidentally was that it has the simplest form. It has a hunter-gatherer, the form that Durkheim discovered among the Australian hunters and gatherers, which he called a mechanical solidarity, that people are linked one to one to one to one to one. So as if you cut them like a worm. Now that is the simplest form known to anthropologists. You only find it normally in African or Australian hunter-gatherer societies. Now somehow China has preserved that, so that modern China is a hunter-gatherer society in the middle of the Australian desert, but with 1.4 billion people. And that is not intuitively what you would guess. But it's a sort of a flow on from the same discovery in Japan. You think Japan a very sophisticated, modern sort of society. But finally, I realized that the essence of Japan is its simplicity, which is that it hasn't separated off the natural and the supernatural world. In other words, it's a pre-axial civilization, which is like a child's world where nature and humanity are interwoven together. So it is basically a shamanic society. Now, talk about Japan as a shamanic society nowadays is very counterintuitive. But that's what I discovered with Japan. What I'm discovering with China is the same thing, that in very many respects, through some magic or mystery, this huge, long, continuous civilization has preserved very early forms. It's like the tree which sadly died in our garden, but is the symbol of Chinese civilization, the Ginkgo. The Ginkgo tree, as I may have said, it's not a tree, it's a fern. It survives from before the Ice Age. It's from the age of the dinosaurs. And yet, all over China, you find the Ginkgo tree, as it's called. And its fern-like leaves are much simpler than the leaves of the modern tree species. Now, China, both in its tree and in its many aspects, has preserved a kind of simplicity. Occurred to me, it's taken Einstein's, my favorite quote from Einstein, make things as simple as possible, but not simpler. And what it's done is just change one word, keep things as simple as possible, but not simpler. The but not simpler applies to the Maoist period, because what Mao tried to do is to oversimplify it, take it one stage on, take it to the oversimplified Maoist vision that you get rid of everything and start again, and get rid of property and get rid of class and so on. That oversimplification led to the disasters of Mao, and also had some knock-on side effects, which is it cleared away a lot of the obstacles to modernity. But basically, China is the simplest form. So you have the simplest form in social organization and structure.